of January 2021. It's hard to believe we're finally out of 2020. So again, I'm Dr. Dale Caldwell. I'm a professor and executive director of the Fairleigh Dickinson University Rothman Institute of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And we have yet another great guest, Alan Scharfstein, founder and president of the DAK Group. Well, welcome, Alan.
Hey, thanks, Dale.
As always, I'm going to begin by just going through a little bit, introducing people to the Rothman Institute and and what we're about, and then we're going to go right into Alan. So our mission is to support, promote, and research entrepreneurship with a special focus on family and veteran businesses. Our programs are Family Business Alliance, where we have family business members, and we have everything from a coaching session to consulting and all sorts of speakers and programs. We have a number of student programs, student entrepreneur competitions. Our Veterans Launching Ventures program, which is more than 10 years old, which is now national. We have about 25 states participating in this program for veterans or their immediate family members to develop a business plan. We are writing a lot of articles, research, and policy. Our Entrepreneur Zone is starting to take off as a New Jersey policy program and possibly national. We're doing strategic planning. We're doing work with urban businesses. We do some leadership, sales, and diversity training that you'll hear more about. We're developing a training division and doing some executive certification programs. We wouldn't exist without our sponsors. The TD Bank Charitable Foundation has been one of our largest sponsors and supports us in what we do. Provident Bank is another tremendous sponsor for us. SunTrust and CINJ are wonderful sponsors. Tony Russo, the CEO of CIA&J, joins us sometimes. I'm not sure if he can make it today, but he always has some great questions. The thing we're talking about entrepreneurship, it's more important than ever that people are, as opposed to being a small business owner, people need to really think out of the box and think about their business in new and exciting ways. I've written articles about this being key to bridging the political divide. As you know, this country is so divided. I believe entrepreneurship is something that everybody can get behind, and public policy hopefully will be supported by all parties for this. And we're pushing for the establishment of what we call entrepreneur zones, where entrepreneurship is really encouraged in some of the more economically challenged areas of the country. Our Family Business Week is a program we started to encourage people to identify and support family businesses. You'll find more on our website, familybusinessweek.com. We started a program called Shop Family and J, where people can buy gift certificates for restaurants to support them as they're dealing with this pandemic. We have a TV show called Family Business World, a website of the same name, where we talk to family business leaders and also people like Alan. And Alan, hopefully we'll get you on one of these days, who are experts for family businesses to help them be as successful as possible every day. It takes place every Thursday at 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. on rvntv.tv. Obviously, our Family Business Fridays calls that we started in March, really right after the pandemic was announced, and we've continued it throughout the year, and we'll because it's been successful, we'll continue to do that. As I mentioned, our Veterans Launching Ventures program has really taken off, and really because of Zoom. And so we are literally an international program. We had some Germany participants, Puerto Rico, as well as I said, 25 different states. One of the things that we refer people to is our YouTube channel, the Rothman Institute of Entrepreneurship YouTube channel, where this video and others are on there. So if you missed a session and you couldn't make it today, but you want to hear Alan later, you'll be able to do that by going on our channel. We have over 100 videos that can answer just about any question that anybody has in business. We're also known for our New Jersey Family Business of the Year Awards. We had our 28th year anniversary this year, and award winner Laura Maschtaler from Black Swan Espresso in Newark, who I think is listening in on the call. Welcome, Laura. Our Family Business of the Year under 10 million in sales is Dennis McCullough and McCullough Contracting. And over 10 million in sales, and I had a good chat with him today, is Mike Seitel from Norwalt Design, which is a model of a business that manufactures high-speed machines, but now is manufacturing machines for the not only for the testing, but also for the shops for the virus. So Alan, I'll turn it over to you. I put this slide up, and I was intrigued by this This 25% of business owners will be involved in an M&A transaction in the next 24 months and may not even know it today. That is, that's fascinating.
Okay. Well, Dale, hey, thank you. Appreciate the invitation and look forward to spending a little bit of time here with you. Would you like me to?
Yeah, well, why don't you see if you can share?
Okay.
You should be able to.
No, my share screen says it's disabled.
Okay, go ahead now. Try it now.
Okay, now we can do this.
Perfect.
All right, can you see that now?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so look, first, thanks. It's great to be here. And first, let me just tell everybody a little bit about the DAK Group and what we do. DAK Group is a middle market merger and acquisition firm, which basically helps mid-size, family-owned, and entrepreneurial businesses do a few things. For those who are interested in growing through acquisition, we can help these businesses grow, find the right company to acquire, and help people grow through acquisition. But also, every business at some point reaches the point where a transition is necessary. An owner wants to sell the business, wants to pass it on to the next generation. And our job is to really help these middle market businesses do a few things. We advise them on what they should be doing to plan in advance for a potential sale. We help them get ready. We manage the sale process, which means understanding what the right timing is, what the right value is for a business, how to find the right buyers, how to bring them to the table, how to quarterback the team of professionals that are going to be involved, and really how to maximize the value of a business. Most business owners spend a lifetime or a significant portion of a lifetime growing a business, but few have the experience of selling it. And selling a business only once. Many buyers, especially in today's market, are serial buyers where they where they have the experience of buying these businesses and understand how to negotiate it. And frankly, most entrepreneurs need someone on their side who's been through this more than once, understands what the process is like, understands what value really should be, and also allows the business owner to keep their eye on the ball, which is, running the business. Don't forget that the most critical thing you can do is run a really healthy business. And we want to make sure that people don't make that mistake. So we've been around for a while. We've been doing this for 35 plus years, 650 transactions, but exclusively in the middle market. And that is where we go. That's our marketplace. That's what we like to do every day.
Alan, could you define that middle market before you go? What is that middle market?
Yeah, middle market could be a business that's going to sell for 5 million. It could be a business that's going to sell for several hundred million. The way we sort of describe our marketplace is if your business is bigger than a business broker would handle, but smaller than Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley would want to handle, that's probably the type of business that fits into our sweet spot.
Perfect.
I think one of the things we'll talk about today, and by the way, I only have a couple of slides. I think we're going to spend a lot more time for Dale and myself talking about some of the critical issues that businesses face. But I think we all know that for most entrepreneurs, when they think about selling, the question is really, how do you maximize value? What do you do? What techniques should you be using? How do you prepare? And again, all with the assumption that there can be a big difference in what you yield from a transaction, depending upon how you prepare. And the other thing I'd just like to maybe just touch on briefly, and we can certainly go into this in more detail, is what the market is like today for middle market business sales. And Dale and I were talking a little bit before the rest of you joined. And I have to tell you, it is incredibly surprising to me, in light of the pandemic, in light of all the things going on in the economy, that the middle market in terms of business sales has been as robust as it is, and the valuations are as high as they are. Frankly, we've not really missed a beat. We lost a little bit of momentum in March and April when the pandemic first hit, but since then it's been incredibly active. And I would say that there are 3 real reasons for that. If you take a look at the buyers who are out there today looking at middle market businesses, you have strategic buyers. Those can be public companies, they could be other companies, could be competitors, but not always, who are interested in buying your business. The second group that everybody's heard about are private equity firms, and I'm sure most of you have gotten calls from one at some point or another asking you if you're for sale. Those private equity firms have raised several $1 trillion that they have to use in acquisitions, and they're active out there buying businesses. And many of them have bought businesses that are in an industry, so they're part financial, part strategic. And the third thing that really is driving business sales today are non-US buyers coming into this marketplace. About a third of the deals that we do are with non-US buyers coming in and wanting to buy US-based businesses. And you know that we complain about our economy, we complain about our politics, we're concerned about the stability of what's going on. For those outside the United States, we're still the safest and best economy to invest in, and they're really anxious to invest in us. So we see that as all being really good stuff. So maybe with that, I'll Dale, maybe you could just sort of pick it up and let's figure out what else we should be talking about.
Well, this is great, and you know, one question I had is, you know, I was talking to a number of people, money managers and owners, and in 2019, some had said was the best market to sell your business. That there was a lot of capital available, the cost of capital was cheap, businesses were doing well. Sounds like the pandemic hasn't impacted the value of businesses that much. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I think largely that's true. In certain sectors, it has impacted. Clearly, if you're in hospitality, if you're in travel, if you're in food, you've been horribly affected by this pandemic. But to the largest extent, most manufacturing and distribution businesses have performed really well. And if you take a look at, for example, products sold in Home Depot and Lowe's and home improvement stores, all those companies' sales are up because people are spending more time doing that. People are spending more time eating at home. So again, food products being delivered to the home are increasing, as is infrastructure and other types of industrial manufacturing businesses. So yes, there are sectors that are not doing well, but overall, and our business has very little exposure to travel or hospitality. Overall, the market's really doing great.
Yeah, it really. Well, it's a bicameral market. It's, there are some folks, so I've talking to a lot of businesses, this has been the best year they've ever had. And then, as we know, millions and millions of people are struggling. They can't put food on their table at the same time. Now, many of them are small businesses. So it's a very, very interesting time and sad for some and great for others. One of the things that I find, we work obviously with a lot of businesses, families, small other businesses, and I talk to people who have sold their business or tried to sell their business, and they said, well, the value of the business is me. There is no value other than me in the business. And so what are some steps a business owner can do to increase the value of their company?
Yeah, well, that is a really important point, because if the value of the business is you, that's going to be a challenge when you go to sell a business. But that's one of the things you want to do when you're preparing to sell a business, is thinking about how you bring along the management team, how you develop them, how you incentivize them, so that they're going to be part of this, and a buyer is going to see that as a vital part of the business, because buyers are concerned. I mean, one of the things we can clearly talk about is how buyers look at a business, and buyers are concerned that they're going to pay you a lot of money. You may not be as incentivized as you were before a deal is done, after a deal is done. Also, the buyers are want to make sure that there is going to be continuity of that business when the business owner eventually leaves the business. Because one of the challenges that business owners have is, for some business owners who want to stay on and be in a business after a buyer buys it, it's a really exciting and an energizing time for them. On the other hand, it is different when you're not the boss, and that's something that not everybody can adjust to. But in terms of other things that that business owners should be doing is really looking at your business the way an outsider would look at it. What are the risk factors associated with your business? Do you have a big customer concentration issue? Do you have a supplier concentration issue? Or have you locked in your key employees? This is a really important point. If you have a key salesman or a key manufacturing person, you want to make sure that that party is going to be around after the sale, because they're going to be really important to the buyer also. So do you have a non-compete agreement? Do you have a non-solicitation agreement? Have you thought about how you lock them up in some sort of employment agreement so that when you deliver this business to a buyer, they're going to feel really comfortable that the business is going to stay there? And the other thing I think is really important is to think about getting the right team of advisors in place well in advance of a transaction. Do you have a knowledgeable attorney who understands M&A transactions? Your accounting firm, let's talk to them and make sure they're doing the right thing in preparing your financials. Because for many of us who own privately held businesses, we really don't care about our financials too much. We care about minimizing taxes. We don't really care about maximizing profits on a financial reporting basis. So we have to understand how we bridge that gap, where the things we've been doing to manage our taxes and create an efficient tax situation for us don't shoot us in the foot when we go about selling our business.
So a friend of mine bought a dry cleaner, and the dry cleaner said that their sales weren't what they said their sales were, that they found out 2 years that they had lied about it. And so they took him to court. You know, they virtually almost went bankrupt and so on. How do you protect against that when you're buying? And should you have audited financials? You know, what do you need to do?
Yeah, look, ideally, when we represent the seller, we'd like every seller to have audited financials, but it simply isn't the case. In the middle market, more companies do not have audited financials than do. So though you'd like to have them, you have to live with what you have. Buyers do extraordinary due diligence on businesses. It is, for most sellers, the due diligence process is the single most painful part of selling a business. Buyers want to look at everything, and they usually do a pretty good job of it. I can tell you, in my 35 years of doing this, we have not had a single case where a buyer has sued a seller for misrepresentation of financials.
Wow.
There is, again, very small businesses that, as the dry cleaner may have involved a certain amount of cash in the business. Those tend to be a little bit more challenging in terms of proving numbers. But for the most part, due diligence is something we can prepare for. And by the way, I think one of the important points for a business owner to know is that if you prepare for due diligence properly, there are going to be no surprises. So what we often do is we put our clients through a process very similar to what a buyer is going to do in advance of the buyers ever getting there. Let's find out if there are any weak points. It's almost like a stress test.
Right.
If there's a problem, there's something that's going to come back and bite us. Let's understand it, and let's understand it early. And that's not just financials. That is the question of how are employees locked into the business. Do we have customer concentration issues that are going to be a concern? Do we have customers that we've been doing business with on a handshake because we trust them and we've known them for decades, that a buyer is not going to view in the same way? And again, we can address all those issues if we have time to do it. If we try to address that issue, for example, with an employee, if you go to your critical sales manager on the eve of a closing of a deal and say to him, by the way, our buyer wants us to lock you up with a employment agreement prior to this sale, you know what you're going to find? You're going to find that you have a new partner. Yeah. If you can do that a little bit in advance, you do it when you're giving out Christmas bonuses, you do it at a different point in time, you have a lot more leverage to make sure the results are going to be what you want them to be.
So let me understand the process of your firm. So if I'm a seller, I want to sell my business, I go to you. Now, if I'm a buyer, do I contract with you as well?
You can, yes.
Okay.
We have both buy-side clients and sell-side clients, yes.
Okay. So you do some due diligence for buy-side clients?
Yeah, we do some due diligence. Again, this is typically part of a team when you're buying a business, right? So you have your investment banker who is doing, I'll call the big strategic due diligence. You have your accounting firm, which is doing the accounting due diligence. You have a legal firm, which is doing the legal due diligence, making sure that all these pieces fit together, because again, whether you're buying or you're selling, you want no surprises. You want a deal where nothing comes back to haunt you after that deal is done. If you're a seller and you're selling for X dollars, you want to make sure that those X dollars are yours and no one's coming after you 3, 4, 5 years from now claiming that there's something that was not quite right.
Right, right. And so what I'm also hearing is that people are important, that to the buyer, it's not just your books, it's really your people, your staff, et cetera, and to really look at that as well. Say a little more about that,
Yeah. One of the misconceptions about doing deals is that people are looking at this like an accountant with green eye shades. Right. It's not happening. That's not the case. So buyers are looking at a number of factors. And by the way, if anybody's interested, we have some white papers on this subject that we certainly can share with you about what buyers look at, how to prepare a business for sale, and the various things that go into an analysis of whether a company is a good fit or not. But buyers look at a number of things, again, in addition to financials. They're looking at your employees, they're looking at your customer base, they're looking at the dynamics of your business. And all of those things are important to that buyer. The other thing that's really important to recognize is that buyers not only look at your history, it is frankly more important to them that they look at the future of the business. They're looking not in a rearview mirror, they're looking forward. So as one presents a business to buyers, it's not simply saying to them, here's how we performed last year. We need to be able to show them our projections as to a business model that shows what we're going to do in the future, why we're going to do it, what growth opportunities exist, how this business is really positioned to take advantage of the market. Because if we can do that, we're going to get a much higher price than we are if we're simply saying to them, hey, take a look at these financials and make a judgment.
Wonderful. Now we did get a request for the white papers. So how should they reach out to us or reach out to, how would they contact your firm? Could you give their phone number and web address?
Yeah, we certainly can do that. I have maybe at the end we'll put up a slide that has all that information on it, but certainly they can contact us directly, or if they want to contact you, we're happy to forward it to them that way also.
Well, I mean, this is really fascinating. So what I'm hearing too is that it's useful for every business owner to have a skill, whether they're going to sell or not, a skill or understanding of how businesses are valued. And because I think you need to know, and we've said this in some of my other shows, that you need to know the value of your business. You need to know what is it worth, not just now, but also projecting in the future. And is that true? Do you think that that's a skill that people should really be doing long before they want to sell?
Absolutely. The things that that buyers look at and the types of things buyers look at are sometimes very different than what you as an operator and owner of the business will look at while you're valuing your business. And it's really important that you think about your business the way others would think about it. Because if you can do that, you're going to be moving towards maximizing value. And this is the case whether you're selling to a third party, whether you're passing this on to your next generation, whether you're engaging management in the ownership of the business. It really is important that business owners look at their business from the outside as others would look at it. And if you do that, you're going to really help to maximize the value of a business. And frankly, the sooner you do that, the better price you're going to get for your business when you eventually decide to exit that business.
So we have another question from very successful business, actually from two of our successful business friends. Do you help them find, as you're a successful manufacturer and you're looking to buy some other companies, do you help them find companies to buy?
The answer is yes. If a business owner has I'll call it a really good profile as to what they're looking to acquire and how they're looking to acquire it, We can help them screen buyers. We can help them find sellers. I'm sorry. We can help them find those sellers. We have access to a whole bunch of data and metrics surrounding businesses that are helpful to us in doing that. And the other thing I think is really interesting to think about, especially when when you're buying a business, is that sometimes people want to buy businesses that are a mirror of their existing business. They're very much the same. They understand it, they know it, they think it's really a great business to buy. Sometimes it makes sense for businesses to acquire businesses that are different than their business because it broadens their product line. It gives them a contact with additional customers. It allows them to grow their business in a different way and sometimes provides them with additional safety. So sometimes it's a question not only of knowing exactly what you're doing, but really thinking very strategically about how you grow your business. If I might just give you an example of that. A number of years ago, we were engaged in a transaction where one of the country's largest manufacturers of shoelaces ended up buying one of our clients. What did our client do? Had nothing to do with shoelaces, had nothing to do with shoes. Our client was a manufacturer of pet products. Now, the question is, why would a shoelace manufacturer want to acquire a manufacturer of pet products? It was a very interesting strategic decision. They looked at their own business and said, we have a problem here. Our problem with our business is that our core market is not growing. People aren't buying more shoelaces. Matter of fact, people are moving to loafers and Velcro and all sorts of other things. So that's not a growing market. But we have great distribution. They had something like a 70% market share in the grocery and drug channels of those stands where you see the shoelaces in your grocery store. Well, they had great retail location. They had great relationships with retail vendors. So the question that eventually came up was, how do we leverage that? And we looked at the marketplace and we found out that one of the biggest growing categories in these stores were pet products. And so we were able to help this shoelace company acquire a pet products company. And they use their leverage, their connections, their relationships with buyers to bring that product through their channel of distribution. In the first year after they did the acquisition, they more than doubled the sales of the company they acquired. And the second year, they doubled them again. Why? Because they were able to leverage a core competency that they had into a different product line. So doing acquisitions are really fascinating and sometimes can really transform a business into something much better than it was before.
Well, and again, I remember at Wharton in the business school, I mean, M&A is this is fascinating, the most interesting part of business, because I'm thinking about, and there's so many great stories. I think when you talk about that, I think about that little company called Google, which owned the searches and bought YouTube, right? Which was a brilliant purchase. And I remember another company called American Can Company. The American Can Company, I don't remember, that was in Connecticut. It actually switched over from a can company to an insurance company, which is the biggest transformation. So this, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is a time when, because there's such you're either doing really, really well or you're really, really struggling, it's an opportunity for some businesses to look at other industries to buy, because a lot of companies have more cash now than they've had ever. And so they should really look at that. Do you help them with that? I know we do a little of this, but a little help them with the strategic thinking around that? Or you do? Okay, so
Yeah,
you'll guide them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, there are a lot of reasons why deals are getting done today. Some of it, you're right. There's record amounts of cash out there to do deals, both strategic buyers who are finding it really difficult to grow businesses organically. So they're looking to acquire businesses. There are the financial buyers who have money who are out there doing this. But the other thing I think that's really impacting the market right now is that, and we're seeing a incredible influx of new business into our pipeline. Some of that driven by the traditional factors that cause business owners to want to sell. But I'll tell you, there's a lot of COVID fatigue that exists in the marketplace today. really good businesses, even some of those that are performing at pretty high levels, where owners are just tired. This has been a really tough year for all of us.
Yeah.
Some financially, certainly emotionally, physically, health-wise. And there are a number of business owners who I would think it's a little bit early for them to be selling, but they're basically saying to us, you know what, we'd really like to take money off the table now. And we are just tired. So we're seeing a lot of businesses coming into the marketplace probably a little earlier than they would under normal conditions.
So how do you look for a bit? You're a busy CEO. You've had a great year. You have a lot of cash. You don't have a lot of time. How do you look for businesses?
Well, I think you have to first step back and take a look and say, really, what do we want to do? Do we want to grow a business organically? Do we want to grow a business through acquisition, which is a possibility? Or the third item is, do we want to take some money off the table now? And those three things are very closely intertwined in terms of making the right strategic decision for a business. For most business owners, there is more optionality out there now than there ever was. If I were to take a look at the business world 10 years ago, business owner sort of had a choice. I can grow through acquisition, I can sell my business, or I can own it. Those were your three basic choices. There's a fourth choice in the market today, which has become very intriguing for certain business owners. And that is, do they sell part of the business? Do they hedge their bets? And that can be an interesting option. And one of the things that we're seeing, by the way, and I'll just diverge for a second, is that we're seeing that business owners are selling businesses at younger and younger ages than they ever sold them in the past. When we do a survey annually of business owners of who's selling and why they're selling, and 15 years ago when we started doing the survey, our typical seller was 67 years old, no kids going into the business, time to sell. Last year, our typical business owner was 52 years old. And if you think about that, the average age of the seller has reduced by 15 years in 15 years. That's pretty dramatic if one looks at that. And what we're seeing is that many of the sellers are selling to private equity. And why private equity? Private equity offers them a slightly different model. That model says, sell us a percentage of your business, 60, 70, 80% of the business. Take a lot of cash off the table now. De-risk your personal life. And remember, most of us who own businesses have probably somewhere over 60% of our assets tied up in this one highly illiquid asset. So let's take a bunch of cash off the table, but let's give you, once you take that off, let the private equity firm inject money into the business to allow it to do acquisitions, to buy new equipment, to grow the business, and 3, 4, 5 years down the road, potentially have a second bite at the apple when that rest of the business is sold. And so that can be really intriguing. And we've had some of our clients who have had incredible success stories where they have sold their businesses and they sold 80% of the business for X dollars, and that 20% became worth more than the original 80. So I think one of the big challenges for business owners today, and it's a challenge only because it's a real positive challenge, is that there are just more real options out there.
Well, Sue Slavin in the Rothman office had turned me on to this show called Silicon Valley, where it's these young kids. It's actually very funny, and but there are a lot of lessons in there about the Silicon Valley and how they buy and sell and so on. And I think part of that is, which I think is a dangerous precedent, the young idea that I'm not trying to create wealth. I'm not trying to create a family business that's 100 years old. I'm trying to create something, scale it and then sell it. And I think that's permeating the marketplace more. I don't know how many, if you work with any of the 20-somethings that are trying to do stuff. Are you getting that sense that this building a business is not as big a deal or not as much a focus as it has been?
Well, please don't use that show at the Silicon Valley as a model for what we do.
Not a model. It's funny.
That would be scary. But it is really interesting. And by the way, I see this with my kids, two of whom are pretty entrepreneurial. where when the 20-something generation is starting up a business, they are looking at that business not as a lifetime career, but they're looking at that business with a view towards what the exit strategy from that business is.
Right, exactly. From the
How are we
start.
going to exit this business? And by the way, every business owner should be thinking about the same thing. If you were ever to sell your business, Dale, to a private equity firm, one of the first questions they're going to ask you when you sit down with them to talk about your business is, what's our exit strategy? When we want to sell this business 3, 4, or 5 years from now, how are we going to get out of it? And if we don't have a good answer, they're not a buyer. So it is what younger people are looking at, but I have to tell you, it's really a smart way of looking at a business.
Interesting. So does that mean that the family, the 100-year, like some of our family businesses are 140 years old? Are we saying that multi-generational family business is dwindling? Is that the nature of it, or is that just an IT thing?
No, it's not just an IT thing. What we're seeing is the life cycle of the business is being compressed. The businesses are moving much faster and they're selling much faster. And there's another reason for that. Another reason why more and more business owners are selling at younger ages. If you look at the risk factors of owning a business today, they are greater than they've ever been. Why do I say that? In our parents' generation, if you owned a business, you provided a good product or service, you did it at a fair price, you could generally expect that your customers would be there today, tomorrow, and into the future. That doesn't happen today. There's a lot more movement in our economy. There's a lot more disruptive risk to what's going on. So you may have a great customer base, but those customers may be sold to a new owner who may not have the same level of loyalty. You may have new competition coming in from offshore that's impacting your business. There is the story of an entrepreneur who built up what was New York's the largest taxi fleet, and it's a great story of a Russian emigre who came to the United States and started driving a cab, and then one cab, a second cab, a third cab, built his business up, had over 1,200 cabs, eventually with hack licenses in New York, so it was worth over $1 billion.
Yeah.
But he missed one thing. He missed Uber. And now filed for bankruptcies, foreclosed, going to jail, all sorts of things going on around that business. And so what we're seeing is that the world is moving so much faster, and there's so much more risk in owning a business today that many business owners decide to de-risk themselves, to take some money off the table earlier, because it's really a very smart strategic decision.
Right. No, I mean, that's a great perspective, and we're starting to see that. I mean, the loyalty to customers, I mean, to businesses. I mean, you look at the sports industry. You know, the baseball players stayed with the same team their whole career. Football players, and now it's just everything's moving, and so you've got to get with the pace going forward. So now, what about family conflict? You know, we know very few family businesses have conflict, and no, just kidding. You know, every family business has some form of conflict. How does that impact the selling process, or what do you need to do if you have a family business and you think that you may want to sell down the road? You know, I know you've worked with a number of businesses. What advice do you have?
Well, look, you know, families are a challenge no matter what. They're a challenge whether they're in a business or out of business, but clearly when family is in a business, it creates the potential for more interesting family relationships. And some of those are brilliantly good, but we've dealt with a lot of cases where there have been conflicts, some between father and child, some between siblings, you know, who are in the business. And sometimes a decision is made that exiting a business or selling the business or selling part of the business is the best option. And sometimes that can really help that conflict. As an example, we represented a business recently where a father and son who had worked together for years had finally reached a point where the differences became irreconcilable. But they also had different objectives. The father was in his late 60s and really wanted to take money off the table and secure his financial future. He had a younger wife. He needed to make sure that she was taken care of. While the son was in his 40s, and he saw a lot of growth potential in this business and saw it growing in a different way. In that situation, we ended up with a deal where the father was bought out totally by a buyer group. He was allowed to retire with a lot of cash. The son got some cash out of the deal, stayed in the business, helped to grow it with his new partners, and they grew it dramatically. And both of them felt that it was a great solution for them. So there are often cases where working with the right exit strategy or acquisition strategy can sometimes allow a business to move to the next level and help to solve those problems. And by the way, all of these problems that we're talking about, all these issues that we're talking about, whether it be exit strategy, exit timing, strategic issues, have all been accelerated and emphasized by the pandemic. They have made the situation, they have taken small fractures and made them much bigger. And they sometimes create great opportunities for business owners, sometimes create great challenges. And what we've really seen is that the businesses that are really doing well right now are those that really understand how to pivot, how to change what they do, how to adjust to the marketplace. If you can do that, they typically are doing really well. In my own family, I have a son who owns a craft brewery in Long Island City. And there was a business where much of their business was one of two things. It was either people going into the tap room and buying, or kegs being sold to restaurants. And when the food industry shut down, food service shut down, they were faced with a challenge. Fortunately, they were able to pivot their business. They bought a canning line. They started canning product, and next thing you know, beer sales are up because everybody's staying home and drinking. So every business has this, and some respond to it really well. Some are really challenged by it.
Interesting. No, that's so from a family business standpoint, what have you seen? Do buyers want to make sure there's one person they're dealing with? I imagine buyers can be scared off. They see a great deal, but the family's in conflict and said, we don't want to deal with that. We'll go to what do families have to do to be ready to sell, or at least to be attractive to a buyer as far as how they communicate?
Yeah. Look, buyers don't want to buy into a family feud. So whatever the situation is, we have to try to make sure it either goes away or does not rise to the surface. And by the way, that's not always easy, because buyers are pretty smart. And you sit in a meeting with with families that are in conflict. Body language tells a lot.
Right.
So we need to make sure everybody's on the same page. We need to make sure everybody buys into the process. For example, if a determination is made by the older generation that it's time to sell a business, and the younger generation doesn't buy into that, and they're sitting in that meeting with their hands folded, ugly faces on, that deal isn't happening. So you need to address that. Now, it may be that some of the addressing that means, and by the way, it's not just family, it's also others within your infrastructure, in your ecosystem, your other employees. What you don't want to have is you don't want to have unhappy employees sending messages to the buyers, whether they be your sales manager, your manufacturing manager, or others on your team. So we need to address those issues up front. Sometimes, for example, with non-family members, and sometimes even with family members, it means giving them or negotiating with them a stay bonus where they get paid some percentage of the ultimate purchase price if they help us create the deal and they help people buy into it. So what we don't want to have happen is we don't want to have insiders deep sixing our deals by virtue of the fact they don't think it's in their best interest. We have to realize that selling a business scares lots of people, right? It scares employees, it scares suppliers, it scares everybody because most people see that as a risk. In reality, there's very little to be scared about because the biggest asset that most buyers are buying are your employees and your people. And their biggest concern is these people are going to leave. They want to protect them, they want to keep them on board. But as an employee, it's scary. And so we need to make sure that we have a way of addressing this so we don't scare people.
One of the other challenges is that I've seen with some businesses that are really ripe for sale, that the next generation really can't take it to the next level, but the founder or the daughter or son of the founder has spent their whole life building that business, and they want to die owning the business. What have you done? How do you deal with that? I see that a lot, where they say, well, if I sell the business, I don't need money, but this is my livelihood. I got to go somewhere every day, and I'm 80 years old. What have you seen, or how do you address that?
Look, there are some cases where a business owner wants to die with their boots on. They never want the business sold. In most cases, that's not the case. They may be really concerned about how the business is going to transition. They may be concerned that their legacy is being well protected. They may be concerned that key employees who have really helped them build that business are going to be treated well. They don't want their reputations tarnished on their way out. So if we can address those issues, we can usually structure a deal that's going to work for everybody. But what it really comes down to is very often business owners make a decision that the highest price that people offer for a business is not the deal that they're going to accept. They want to accept the deal that makes them feel really good about their business. And if that's a little bit less dollars on the table, that can often drive a deal. We completed a deal recently where there were two great offers for this business. One was about 20% higher than the other. And we looked at this manufacturing business and we had pushed both sides as high as they could. I know I couldn't get the second offer up any higher. And when I sat down with the owner of the business and talked about them, he eventually said, I want to accept the lower offer. And when I asked why, he said, the higher offer tells us they're going to keep my plant open, but I don't necessarily believe them. And someday I'm going to be standing in the supermarket and an employee is going to tap me on the shoulder and say to me, Mike, you took care of yourself, but we really got screwed in this deal. And he said, you know what? I could never live with myself if I hear anybody say that to me. So he made a decision to leave, I will say, several $1 million on the table.
Wow.
Because he was doing the deal he felt was right for him, was right for his employees, was right for his legacy. And he's never looked back. He has thought, every time I talk to him, he reminds me of what a great decision he thought he made by picking the second highest bid.
Well, and that's one of the reasons that I'm just so almost evangelical about family businesses and on my TV show and on this, is because people don't realize that family businesses care about, once you've been with a family business for a while, you don't have to be family, you're treated like family. They can't afford to poorly treat their employees. And that's what people don't understand. Yet a lot of political folks, they think that, everybody's trying to take too much money from people and so on, but they genuinely care about the well-being of their families. And there are millions of stories of how they help other folks. So one question that I wanted to ask is multiples. So we talked about that there are a lot of buyers out there and so on. Are you saying that the multiples they're willing to pay, the amount they're willing to pay, has changed some during the pandemic?
Well, 2019 was a record year for multiples. There was no question about it. They were off the charts high, and question as to whether they were truly sustainable. 2020, post-pandemic, they dropped, but just by a little, not by that much. And the reason that they dropped was this is a direct correlation between the leverage that buyers can put into deals and the multiples that they're willing to pay. And what that really tells us is that the banks and financing sources have become a lot tighter about lending money to businesses. So we all know that rates are really low, and you can borrow money at really low rates, but the ability to leverage deals has gone down. But all in all, I think we're still in a pretty frothy market in terms of the multiples that people are willing to pay.
So Alan, if I'm a business owner out there listening to this show or watching it on tape, and I'm, I think I want to sell my business, but probably not for 2-3 years. Should I talk to somebody now, or should I wait?
You absolutely should talk to someone now, because some of the things you want to do to clean your business up, to get it ready, are going to take you 2 to 3 years to do. So absolutely talk now. And one of the things that we see out there in the market today is that probably half of the deals that we're working on right now are business owners that had no intention of selling their business now. But they were approached by a competitor, by a private equity, by someone else who's offering them pretty good money to be a seller. And some of them are ending up leaving money on the table because they haven't had the ability to clean stuff up in advance of a transaction. So my typical advice to business owners is that you really should run your business like you're going to own it forever, but be prepared to sell it tomorrow. Do the types of things that we know are going to be important to buyers, and do them now, because again, it's going to help you. It's going to help you, for example, from a tax standpoint, to pay less taxes on the transaction if you prepared for it. From a family standpoint, where you have the ability to do some estate planning in advance of a transaction so that less money goes to the government. From a buyer standpoint, so you're able to get more money from buyers because you've prepared in the ways that they want to see this business prepared. So the sooner you can think about it, the saying that I've heard so many times when people ask, when should you start preparing for a sale? It's probably the day you start the business. Yeah. And if you run your business that way, and Dale goes back to your question, that's the way younger generations run their business. They run it like they're going to sell it tomorrow, and that's really the right thing to be doing.
One of the things that I've heard a lot in talking about young people is this idea of, and it's the venture capital market. This idea of really scaling the investments in the business going forward. I know this isn't necessarily your business as much. I mean, are you seeing some of that where they're really looking? These are an IT company. They get their family and friends first, and then round A, round B. Are you dealing with businesses that do that as well?
We do. Most of our businesses are mature businesses,
okay.
Which they can be really growing, and some of them are growing at a tremendously rapid rate. But we're not a venture firm as such. We are really a firm that helps business owners in terms of either growing through acquisition, exit strategies, and helping businesses really understand what the value of their businesses are. Most business owners, frankly, don't understand what the value is. They know what they'd like it to be, but they really don't have a realistic fix on what the true value of their business is today. And that's really a shame, because if you think about all the things that you do that are going to be impacted by the value of your business, whether it be your estate planning, your vacation planning, anything that you do that's related to that. And the other thing that I just mentioned is that if business owners don't think of this in advance and something unforeseen happens, it can make a big difference to the next generations. When a business owner dies, if they haven't really thought about succession planning, if they haven't thought about building infrastructure, sometimes a very substantial portion of the value of their business dies with them. And that can be very painful for a family. So it really does make sense to think about this a little bit in advance.
Well, and I often take succession planning to the next level, and I call it legacy planning, because I think as I work with a lot of family businesses, it's not about the money. A lot of the people, as I said, are in their 80s and so on, that they don't need another $1 million to spend, but they're thinking, well, what is my life? I put all these hours here. What's my life worth? And what am I leaving behind? Am I giving money to a school? Am I giving money to the town? Whatever. Do you have any creative ways that people have kept sold the business but maintained a legacy, outside of cash?
Look. So again, business owners do it in several ways. Some stay involved in the business even post transaction, so that they can continue to help the business grow and have fun doing that. It is really fascinating to watch business owners redeploy their money post transaction. You're absolutely right, Bill. Business owners are and entrepreneurs are just incredibly intriguing people. We've seen business owners take virtually the total proceeds from their transaction and donate that to charity. We've seen business owners take the money from their transaction and adopt an elementary school class in a underprivileged area and pay for their education through college. And share their good fortune with others. And they take incredible pride, incredible joy. One of my clients who was out in Phoenix recently flew to New York with a high school class, a graduating high school class, which was a class he adopted in elementary school, I think kindergarten. Helped them all the way through school, got them tutors, got them additional help, got them family counseling, helped them through this. And then if they graduate from high school with us and were going on to college, he flew them all to New York, put them up in hotels. These are kids who had never been on an airplane before. So you see just incredible acts of kindness and generosity coming from these business owners. And by the way, that's what makes what I do so much fun, because we're not dealing with, for the most part, with corporate type people where everything has to fit in a certain box. You're dealing with entrepreneurs. And by the way, it doesn't make it easy, because it means that they want things done their way. They want certain things out of a deal that may not be normal, may not be typical. But we end up with incredible transactions and frankly, incredible friends at the end of this whole process.
One of the things, and I know that there are people listening who said, this is great. When I'm ready to sell, I'm going to call Alan or somebody like Alan and so on, but I'm not ready to sell yet. And so one of the things I've said is that, maybe it's worth paying someone to do a evaluation of your business every couple of years. Do you think that makes sense? Because I think sometimes I've seen that's kind of awaken people to the reality is, wait, I'm my value. I need to do something different. Sometimes that's what people need to actually do what we're talking about. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's certainly something that we do for some business owners, where we go in there and value the business so they can figure out what they want to do. We also sometimes do something. We have a strategic leadership group within our firm that will sometimes go in there and help businesses do some other things that they need to do in preparation. Sometimes it is putting in an incentive program for management, getting your salary structure and bonus structure in line. Sometimes it's getting your reporting structure improved so that the business is more saleable when you decide you want to do it. Sometimes those same things that we're doing to get a business ready for sale take some of the pressure off of the business owner so that they maybe can own the business for a longer period of time. As we all know, owning a business, being an entrepreneur, sometimes is a very stressful process. And it puts a lot of pressure on a business owner, where everything rests on that business owner, where all the employees are dependent upon you, your families are dependent upon you, the bank loans are dependent upon you, you have your house, a second mortgage on your house. All of these things are really focused on that business owner. And sometimes doing a deal allows a business owner just to have a more relaxing life. We sold the business a couple of years ago, and probably a month after the sale, I called the business owner at home, and it was about 10 o'clock at night. There was something I had to cover with him, and his wife picked up the phone, and I asked where Bob was, and she said, Bob's still at work. And I said, oh, okay, I'll give him a call. She said, Alan, I thought you told me that after we sold this business, I'd see him more. I don't see him anymore. He's working just as hard. So I called Bob at work, and I said, Bob, your wife tells me you're working too hard. You're spending more time at work. I said, did we make a mistake by selling the business? And he said to me, no, Alan, I didn't make a mistake. He said, yes, I'm working just as hard. I'm working just as many hours. I can't stop myself. It's just part of my DNA. He said, but you know what? The pressure is off. My life is more relaxed. So every one of these deals has a story behind it. There's a human aspect of doing deals. And again, that's part of the fun of the middle market. It is not all numbers. Right. There's humanity each and every deal that we do.
Well, thanks very much. We're at time. Do you have that slide? You want to put up the slide with your information?
Yep, I will. Let me just do that.
People that want a copy of some of the white papers or or other information. But Alan, this has been fantastic. You know, I've learned a lot, and
So
there you
so
go.
Dale, up here, you know, my name, my name, direct phone line. You can feel free to call me directly, or my email address. And again, you know, for anybody who is thinking about selling, thinking of acquiring, wants to understand the value of your business, happy to speak to you and answer whatever questions you might have about either the process, your particular situation. Dale, I really want to thank you and the Rothman Institute for the invitation. It's been a great hour or so.
Well, again, Alan, this has been fantastic. I want to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for coming. We'll be here again next week at 12 noon for our Zoom at noon. And Alan, have a wonderful weekend. Everybody have a wonderful weekend again. Happy New Year. And I hope this was helpful. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.